We're running a little behind schedule, but this topic is extremely important, so let's sort of carve out some extra minutes to field any questions from here. And let me also welcome any questions from St. Louis University. Gladys, are you now available? So just in case there are any questions there, please just communicate to us. So I see two immediate questions. Please, let's begin with the gentleman here. It's coming.
Well, I'm Seth Foliosko from the Makati Business Club. I noted from the presentations, while mention was made about the recession and all these things, the effect of fuel, I have not heard any mention of the effects of the MENA, which is already starting to affect the Philippines insofar as overseas workers are concerned. Second, the so-called tsunami from Japan has an effect not only on our supply chain for the electronic industry, which is our biggest export, our automotive industry for the domestic market, and this has already an effect, and I do not see any mention in these things what are the supposed possible solutions that we can offer. I know that the government itself from NEDA, the Department of Agriculture, and others, and Export Development Council have been meeting, and the impact of all of this has not been properly ascertained yet. Can we get your views on these things?
Okay, that first question may be best directed, I guess, by our lone presenter from government. But I welcome also any thoughts shared by Dr. Viray, perhaps. But let's, I guess, field the second question and then answer, provide a chance to answer.
Joe Faustino, AIM professor. So similarly related to the tsunami and earthquake in Japan, what is probably going to exacerbate the oil shortage is that most nuclear plants are on hold now. So the substitution of oil by nuclear energy will now be slowed down a lot. Now, for another factor to be considered is we all know that for India and China, the #1 source of energy is coal. Unfortunately, coal blackens our lungs and makes the world temperature get higher every year. It's not a good solution. But if oil is going to be as scarce as has been predicted, I don't think there's not as much in the short run possible to substitute coal. The last thing I'd like to say in connection with this is the fact that the Middle East is in turmoil, and of course we've seen lately the impact on oil prices because of that. And I was afraid, as many people were, that Saudi Arabia, the #1 oil source, would be affected by this social turmoil too. And if it were, God help us, welcome $200 per barrel oil if Saudi is roiled by this turmoil. But of course, even the revolutionaries will want the oil revenues to continue, so that's probably going to be short-term disruption. So these things affect the oil scarcity. Could you please comment on these pluses and minuses for the oil picture?
So let's turn over to Mr. Lapid.
I feel a little nervous representing the entire government in this room. But anyway, we did an initial assessment with regard to the first question on the turmoil in the Middle East and North Africa region. I can't recall the exact figures, but my impression was that the the countries that were initially affected by the thermal, places like Libya and Yemen, account for only a small proportion of the deployed workers, if I'm not mistaken. So the initial assessment that we had at the BSP was that it would not seriously affect the remittances. And of course, it might be a different story. It might be a different story if the political turmoil spreads to the other Middle East countries where many of our overseas workers are located. So that could present serious concern in so far as the prospects for remittances is concerned. Regarding the question of alternative sources, if I understand the second question right, the question is about alternative sources of fuel, or energy. As I've mentioned a while ago, we've done a lot in terms of reducing our dependence, energy dependence on crude oil. I think it's just about a third of oil accounts for just about a third of our entire energy needs. Where I think the most gains will be made in terms of reducing that dependence is in the transport sector, which I think crude oil makes up nearly 100% of the energy requirements for transport. I think currently we already rely to a large extent on alternative sources like geothermal and hydro electric power. So I'm not sure that the gains from increasing the use of alternative sources will be large in the case of the Philippines.